Should we just, so Mark Alston's had an operation, so he can't make it. Before we do declarations of pecuniary interest, should we go around the table and introduce ourselves actually? My name's Owen Pritchard, I'm Chair.
Councillor Adam Bush, Vice Chair.
Nimashi Sliyo, I'm Head of Treasury and Pension.
Annika Baduri, Investment Advisor, Mercer.
Adam Briggs, Investment Advisor, Mercer.
I'm Julie Beelan, I'm actually from Barnabout.
I'm Gwynne Executive Vice Secretary of GMB.
Gary Rose, Pension Fund Accountant.
Carol Horn, Director of Corporate Services.
I'm Squash Patel from Ernst & Young, the external auditors.
Roger Kershaw, Assistant Director Resources.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? No. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting, I wasn't in attendance, pages 1 to 2. Do you agree that they're fair representation? Agreed. Point 4, quarterly performance review, January to March 2019, page 3. So I draw attention to the fact that you're asked to note the content of this report, in particular the market values and performance of the total fund and component portfolios for the quarter ending 31st of March 2019. I'm just going to flick to a couple of paragraphs, because I trust everyone has read this in depth, but so I'll just highlight 2 paragraphs. 2.2. Over the 3 months, the 31st of March 2019, total funds assets returned 8% compared to the target value of 1.3%. So clearly a good quarter. This equates to outperformance by 6.7%. The fund's total market value increased by 58.6 million over the quarter, from 662.1 million to 720.7. Over the last 12 months, the fund's performance is 7.7% and 3-year annualised performance is 10.6%. The annual performance target is 5.5. And during this quarter, the fund also continued to implement its new investment strategy. I just want to raise that because it's a good quarter and it's a good performance over the medium term as well. And especially when one considers that when I took over as chair, the preceding quarter last year, due to overexposure to equities, was a very difficult one. So, you know, people are quick, and I was quick to criticise that, but, you know, it seems as if the strategy that we're currently implementing is working and is delivering. Does anyone want to raise any questions or issues or say anything about the quarterly performance review? Okay, so the next is to note page 19, the Merton Pension Fund Audit Report.
Yeah. I'll, as per the previous page, I'll take it as read, but I'll just give you a bit of a summary in terms of the audit of the pension fund. Actually, similar to the previous year, the audit of the pension fund has gone really smoothly. Great kind of assistance and support from Nashi and her colleagues in the finance team. Probably 2 things that, one change, one thing that has caused us issues, and I'm glad to see there's somebody from the actuary profession here that probably explained it quite better than I can in terms of what's going on with all this. But so the one change that we've reflected in the plan and reflected here in terms of was your involvement in the investment vehicle and the changes around that. So we did do some additional work around that. Actually, again, very, very well supported by Nimashi in terms of coordinating our engagement with the London Civic. So we were able to get all the assurances we needed from the fund managers and the custodian. And as you see, as we reported there, there were no real issues with that. So the one issue, obviously, that has created problems for all pension funds and associated listed bodies is the McLeod ruling, as well as GDP as well, and so I'm sure lots of other things as well. But that was the one thing that really you had to deal with. So you prepared your accounts on the basis of the information that you had at the time. We all kind of knew something was going to happen with the court ruling, and that subsequently happened near the end of June. You actually acted probably quicker than most of the clients that I have in respect of going back to your actuaries and even in various reports and getting the right information to support a true and fair position in terms of your accounts, and the accounts that will be picking up later reflect those figures appropriately from our perspective. So we were, whilst it was a bit of a headache trying to work it all out, I think I'd say you were probably ahead of the game in respect of how you dealt with that, and we're pleased with the outcome in respect of in respect to the accounts that we'll be looking at later. So, so other than that will kind of change. There was nothing of significance that we wanted to report to you as a committee. We're in a position to conclude on the audits. Obviously, it's all tied in with the main council accounts, which we're still working on. In terms of the pension fund accounts, we've got no further work that we need to carry out other than getting your management representation and carrying out a subsequent pledge review.
Roger, Nima, do you want to add anything?
No.
Does anyone from the table have any questions?
So we'll understand what the cloud
Yeah, we can come on to that later.
Do you want to do the McLeod now?
Yeah, so McLeod, so basically what happens is it's called the McLeod and Sargent cases, and it was his judicial reviews about transitional protections that were applied to other public sector schemes, and McLeod and Sargent all raised cases against this, and it's claimed that this was unfair, it was age discrimination and indirectly sex discrimination as well. The review went in their favour. The most recent developments were that the government was denied leave to appeal against this. So what did people think? Central government people think that nothing was going to have to change in the public sector schemes, but it was decided that the protection being put in place had been unfair and there was going to have to be a remedy. And so on Monday, the most recent announcement was from Liz Truss saying, like, yes, there is going to be a remedy, but we still don't know what it is, which puts us in quite a remarkable position of going into the valuation without actually knowing what the benefits are going to be. And this is past service benefits as well. We did have a similar situation when the care scheme was introduced, because right up to the last minute there was changes being made to what future service benefits were going to be. It didn't affect the past service position, so we could tidy up that and look ahead in the future. But yeah, we're in a difficult position where it looks as if there's going to have to be some kind of remedy made, and the expectation is it's going to increase the cost of pension schemes. One of the things being floated is extending the transitional protection, by which it makes an underpin. We'll be looking at giving final salary benefits instead of care benefits to see which would be most beneficial to the member. That comes at a cost, obviously. It's an underpin, so it means that where it is beneficial to the member, it will go in their favour. Where it's not beneficial to them, it wouldn't. So we were looking at being a cost rather than being offset by any downside effects of that.
What professions were affected?
It was judges, the first ones. First McLeod was judge, and firefighters was sergeant case. Yeah.
Wasn't it because judges are sort of, by the time they become judges, people generally looking to retire, and
yeah, there was age discrimination. Is the type of people that were going to be affected was the transitional protection was for everybody who was over age 55.
Yeah.
At that or within 10 years of retirement, and the sex discrimination came into that because of the changing profile of people that are
it
entering into profession.
kind of begs the question where you can relate into someone so sort of advanced in years to become a judge. But it's obviously also had an impact on
I think what was felt was
yeah.
it wasn't a proportional response to fixing the issue, so they're looking to do something. But as I say, we still don't actually know what something's going to be, whether it's going to be extending protection to everybody who was in the scheme in 2012, which was when the decision was made. But well, that's a problem for people that weren't in the scheme in 2012 and joined 13-14, but then can you really discriminate against people who weren't there to be discriminated against? That's going to be argued as to what's actually going to happen. But for all the work that we did for the accounting reports, the effect isn't, for all of the energy that's been expended on the issue, we're not actually talking huge sums of money. So I think for Merton's whole fund,
For some funds.
For some funds,
it's
yeah.
Our
Yeah.
fund, it's not.
Yeah,
For
because our
every
exposure
business.
to relevant professions is tiny, isn't it?
Yes, so 7.1, but I know there are some pension funds where it's 400 to 500 million.
yeah, well, I think
So
we
that's
were,
a big
yeah.
impact.
That's a big chunk of change.
Yes, it's very big chunk of change for some people.
Is there any reason, Caroline, why?
They were firefighters.
Alright.
So certain like Surrey will have a
Yeah.
significant impact
Yeah.
on their pension fund because they're responsible for police fire.
But for Merton, I think from the accounting report, it's only 0.7% on top liabilities, which is real money. It's obviously cash, but it's not as significant as perhaps.
It's an operational shock rather than a strategic one, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's a.
You still have to change your accounts for it.
Yeah. I'm not saying you've not done a marvellous job.
That was
of
a shock,
taking it.
Jack.
Right. Okay. Any more questions on?
Oh yeah, thank you. Just quickly about GMP equalisation. So has that had an impact in terms of, is the Lloyds Banking case?
No, because it's explicitly not affecting what we're doing in the LGPS, and I've had access to the report, and the assumptions that we're making for that is that the current arrangement that the fund is basically picking that up. We've already built that in. So in practical terms, we're a bit different from the other actuarial firms actually. I don't think, the decision we took at the time was that we were just going to assume that it was the fund were going to continue to bear that cost, and that any interim arrangements were going to continue to be extended, and that's what has happened over that time. So in terms of this valuation, no, we're not looking at any great shocks from dealing with entrance to the GMP.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
But just to draw your attention to potential increase in the fee due to the work that's been done in relation to the Civ. So that will need approval by the PSA to do that. But I suppose it's just because the Cabinet report refers to the original scale fee, it doesn't then refer to the fact there's a potential additional charge.
Okay, no problems. Do we don't have to agree that. You agree that, and it's a totally different place. Thank you. That's all I can do. Great. Number 6, the Triennial, evaluate agenda point 6, page 59.
Okay, great.
Does
So
everyone want to take a moment to flick to 59, please?
So, to be pleased here, we're not going to page by page, line by line, because it's 30 pages long, and I don't think we've either got the time or the ventilation to get through that. So what I'll do is just give a brief overview of where we are just now. So the valuation date is 31st of March 2019. We're well past that just now, and the valuation is well underway. But what we're doing at the moment is very much the practicalities of it. So at the last meeting in March, a timetable was agreed, and we're very much on track with that timetable. We're looking to have membership data for all of the active affairs pension members, basically anybody who's ever going to receive a benefit from the fund. We're looking to have that sent on to us, as well as cash flow information for each of the employers, which is the benefits that have been paid out to any members and the contributions that have been received, and as well as any transfer values. So that's member data, financial information, and information about the whole fund. And we're well on track for the timetable to receive that information, and the membership data gets a special mention for being in fantastic condition. It's really very impressive, and that's not something I can often come to a meeting and say, and I won't name any names, I'm sure, but Merton really does stand out, and the member data have been really, really very good quality, and it's been run through. We've got an automated online data checker. The member data can be uploaded there, it runs a series of automated checks, and it gives back a failure score, and over subsequent submissions that's been brought down to 0 for all categories, so that's really absolutely tremendous.
Do you pass that back to GMB, Gwyn? Look at that from members.
Well, it's great, and it is important because we need to have good records to make sure that everybody is going to get their benefits, which of course is the point of this, what we're doing. We've had cash flow information as well, and that's great. And what we do is we get that by employer, and we cross-check that against what we expect to have received based on the membership data that we've got in, so that's happening at the moment. We also get in whole fund information, and we look at the published reports just to make sure that there's consistency, and looking out for any discrepancies that we might have between like asset values or money that's been paid in and out of the fund on a whole fund basis. So I think we're still to receive the final signed off accounts. We're not expecting that yet, that's fine. And one thing we'll also need for part valuation is the long-term asset strategy, which is when we get a kind of feedback loop, because we're waiting to hear what the investment strategy is, and obviously investment people are waiting to hear from us about what it's going to be. But this is an insurmountable problem, this is basically to be expected. So what we'll do is, once we've got the membership data finalised, so we're still running our own checks on it. Once that's finalised, then we'll hand over some information, some calculations to start talking more about investment strategy to try and home in on what that's going to be. And the other key part of that is what's in the document that we sent out last week, which is the assumption. So there's a lot of background detail in this document. It is very long, and it's setting out all the derivation. This is it says draft over it mainly because Barry's fund actuary wasn't able to have a look at it because he's on holiday, so he's not here this evening. So it is draft at the moment, and everything is still subject to further discussions and to be finalised. But what it does do is give a really good background of where we're getting all these assumptions from, and in particular how they change from the valuation that we did last time. The most recent valuation is the 31st of March 2016. So we've set out in that how the assumptions compare for each of those. So it is long and it's detailed, it is very much a jumping off point. What you'll see throughout that is that a lot of the time we're saying this is the same, this is consistent with last year. There's no evidence to suggest that we'll be looking to change anything different. But we do have to, it is subject to discussion, we do have to have an eye on consistency between funds. So they would raise a few eyebrows if we were to have an assumption related to inflation, say that was very, very different from any of the other funds. And, like from a section 13 point of view especially, then that would raise questions. But two areas where it is absolutely expected to have differences are in when the financial and demographic assumptions, in the discount rate in the financial assumptions, and in the post-retirement mortality assumption in the demographic side of things. So the discount rate is just what we're expecting the investment return to be. The investment return is going to be earned by the assets that are actually held by the fund. And our approach to setting the discount rate has many similarities to last time. There's not any huge significant changes. It's still going to be the weighted average of the returns of the assets that are actually held by the funds, and we're calling that something like best estimate minus, which is a wee bit of a play on Gilts Plus, which was a very popular model for a long time. And the significant change that we've made is to look at looking at a different dividend yield. So instead of basing that on UK based equities, which is what we had last time, we've had a look at that and think that the global dividend yield might be more appropriate, particularly because of the actual assets that are held by the fund, and also of indications that the dividend yield is really a little bit on the high side at the moment, and that wouldn't really be expected to continue into the future. So that's the significant change that we made this time compared to last time within the discount rate. But the principle that we're applying for all of the assumptions is to still have all of the prudence in the assumptions wrapped up into the discount rate via an explicit adjustment to that. So all of the assumptions that are set out there are best estimates, they're all neutral assumptions. So all of the prudence is just going to be brought into the model just with an explicit reduction to the discount rate. At the moment that's set as 0.4%. But that will be subject to discussions as we go, because we're still quite a long way off deciding exactly what that's going to be. We wouldn't really be looking to introduce less prudence because of some of the things we raised earlier. There's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. There's uncertainty around what the benefits are going to be. There's the legislation issues. They are bringing up Brexit happening in some form or other. And we're very much looking at the long-term position of the pension fund, but we do have to have an eye on what's going on just now. And there's just too much going on that we don't know. So we wouldn't be looking to reduce the level of prudence that we have there and possibly look to increase it as well. That's on the financial side of things, which is the only area we'll be introducing any prudence. On the post-retirement mortality side, there's two elements to that. One is the mortality tables that we will use. So that's the probability each year for everyone of how they're going to die, basically. Everyone's probability of dying each year. There's not really any three
Things could change.
Things could change, yes. There's two elements to that. So one is the standard tables that we talk, so that's the probability of dying as things stand at the moment. And the other side of that is the future, expected future improvements in life expectancy. So over the last several decades, there's just been a trend of people expecting to live longer and longer and longer, and it sort of seems as if this will never end and where are we going to go. But now we're maybe starting to look at, well, maybe this is starting to tail off, so people aren't living, they're living longer than they used to, but in the future we don't expect to live them as long as we used to expect them to live, which is a very wordy way of saying this is good news from a pension fund point of view, if not for the individuals themselves. So we're looking at the possibility of slightly reduced life expectancy.
So that headline of the first person to live to 1,000 years has already been born, right? It's just nonsense. That's what
I would even go along and say yes, that's nonsense.
that's good to know.
We're not getting that yet.
Yeah, I'm just really happy that we're still going to die.
Yeah.
I think there's something important about mortality. I'm glad.
We're looking closely at the longevity assumptions, so we're carrying out, we've got a specialist team now carrying out a review based on the membership data for all the members of the pension scheme over the last 5 years. So this is an area where it's absolutely perfectly legitimate and expected to have, for every pension fund not to have the same assumptions, because things are very different between funds, different social economic circumstances. It's perfectly okay, and different assumptions are accepted where there's evidence for them, and we'll certainly have the evidence to say what's been happening to this specific membership. So that longevity analysis is still underway, and that will be completed by the end of the month. That's quite a big job. There's also a lot of members, 5 years worth of data, and lots of analysis to be carried out. The longevity team are also looking to combine that with some data and some analysis from other funds to kind of get some bigger picture understanding as well of how to control.
When you mentioned longevity and mortality, morbidity and so on, have you got, well, I have in my head anecdotally and elsewhere on paper, but I was looking at the actual age of the workforce in the council, because the impression I get is that there is quite a tranche of employees who are sort of age 40 to sort of 55 to up to 60, and there's a paucity of younger employees, and there's not that many working on after 65 either. So it seems like a lot of our workforce is sort of middle-aged, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, I think that's probably true as well, and the effect of that, if you were to weight that by the amount of benefits they've got, or even by the salaries, then that would push the average age up as well. But from a mortality point of view, then that's not a specific concern to do with the ages then, because we were applying their tables, we were applying that to all of the members of the scheme. But it should just say a word about mortality is that it's important because it just says the probability of the benefits continue to be paid. So if people are more likely to live, then the benefits are likely to be paid for a longer time, and to their spouses as well, because then we have to get them. So we're cautiously optimistic from a pension fund point of view on the mortality assumptions, but it really is too early to say anything. So just to give an idea of...
You're saying we should really go back to serving fatty foods and having smoking areas outside, right? And really sort of encourage all these poor behaviours and say, well, they'll just save the residents money.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm good for that.
I just wanted to say a certain part of our workforce is not ageing as such, because with the apprentices coming in, so we are beginning to track some young people, so people sort of trying to tail off the increasing age.
What's with the workforce again? I mean, years ago, you get a stereotypical now, where people would say, I've got a job at a council and it's sort of like a job for life. But I think, especially people my age and ages around this table, that's not the case anymore. So if you've got people joining and you're younger employees and they're joining work, are they staying longer or are they moving on?
I think that's a good question. Can we actually take that as a future point? Is actually look at, rather than take it now today and discussing the abstract, can we just look at that, the demographic of the workforce and how it may impact upon pension demand, and we'll just have that as a point in a future pension. It's a good point, but let's get the facts in front of us before we discuss it. Is there anything else you'd like to?
No, just really wanted to just say that although we might be making some gains from a funding position in terms of like slightly perhaps reducing mortality assumptions in the future, The changing financial assumptions will have some changing effects on that, so those two issues are going to balance each other, and an important issue will be the introduction perhaps of more prudence into it, which again will be looking to push the costs up. So although the assets have done very, very well over the last 3 years, and certainly better than had been allowed for in the assumptions of the 2016 valuation, we've got to a good position, but some of that's going to be eaten up by the costs expected to increase in the future. So we did prepare a funding update report that did show an improved position, but we wouldn't be looking to say, yes, let's sit back and invest in those, because it's just always having to chase what the next position is going to be. And in terms of uncertainty, we've talked about the cloud there, so it's very uncertain, but for the pension fund, we just don't know how that's actually going to manifest itself in terms of impact of costs. We don't know what the benefit's going to be. We don't know when the next valuation is going to be either, for sure. Potentially moving to a 4-year valuation cycle. So from a practical point of view, then we'd be looking to normally certify contribution rates for 3 years in the year following the valuation. So from 2020 to 2023 would be what we would have expected to do. But if actually the next valuation cycle is going to be out of kilter, then we're suddenly looking at certifying rates for a much longer period, perhaps up to 5 years, maybe only 4 years. And that introduces an extra element of risk into things as well. If there's not an opportunity to correct a course before then, that's got to be thought about, and we've got to look at the possibility of going off track and not be able to correct during that time. But there'll be a possibility for interim valuations.
Yeah, no, sorry. So why is it switching from 3 to 4?
It's the unfunded public sector schemes are really driving this. There's this, I think it's been a source of irritation that the LGPS is in a 3-year cycle, and it only occasionally falls into line, so it's having trouble for cost management purposes, where they're trying to work out what the, like if MHLG want to see what the cost of the scheme is, then we're always just slightly out of sync, and I think it's impractical in some ways.
And do you guys do annual updates?
We can do, yeah, we can do annual updates. We typically only would update them for financial assumptions, because that's based on market conditions, which we would always have for the time up to the funding update, and depending on when we did it, maybe a little time afterwards. We could do a funding update now for 31st of March. We'd have lots of data to work with, so we can do that to update the financial assumptions as we go along, but to review things like the post-retirement mortality is a massive piece of work, so we would look to update that every year. For the accounting purposes this year, we did update the projection to CMI 2018, which was the most up-to-date model. And one reason we did that was because of the direction of travel of it. It looked as if we're now starting to go over this peak, and that did have a beneficial effect in terms of bringing down the value of the accounting liabilities. But that was unusual. That's not something that we typically do. But I think if we are going to move to an extended period before the next valuation, then we're looking at introducing some kind of mechanism to carry out interim valuations. But it's a big piece of work, and it's obviously costly for in time and money for everybody to be involved in that. So that'll have to be careful consideration of what exactly that would involve at any time.
And I certainly think local authorities in general are not in favour of moving to 4 years.
Yeah, there's no good benefit to it's something that would be kind of imposed and accepted, as opposed to there being any significant benefits from GPS work. And there's some other consultations going on, but they're very much kind of by the by at the moment, and I don't think it's affected so much. But we produce a series of briefing notes that are available to anybody on our website, that if there's any issues that you do want to read a bit more about any other changes that are happening, then they're all available.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think I'll take that. Handle questions.
Okay. No, it's good time. Great. Do you have any other business for this part of the meeting? No, in which case, sorry Mark, that's your shout. The public are excluded from here onwards.